Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Crypto Entrepreneurs Podcast with your host, Charles. Enjoy.
Hello, and welcome to episode 25 of the Crypto Entrepreneurs Podcast. I'm your host, Charles, and today we're sitting down with the founder of Servamps and Chain Curation, Charles J. Reed. Now, today we're going to be covering a lot of stuff, but I think the most important thing that we're going to be talking about today is how to acquire and retain clients. So without further ado, let's jump right into it. So Charles, how you doing today?
Hey man, doing good. How are you?
Awesome. Thanks for asking, man. So before we
Pleasure to be here.
Thank you. Thank you for coming on. I really appreciate it. So before jumping into kind of what your business does and what you're doing as an entrepreneur, can you just tell us a little bit about your background and what you were doing before crypto, and then how you got into this space?
When I got into the space in kind of early 2017, I was working in defense and government. So I was basically recruiting and headhunting senior executive level, mostly in cybersecurity. So companies like Lockheed Martin, Northrop Grumman, BAE Systems, etc. And I was basically hiring very smart technical people, which was it was an okay gig. But what really interested me was emerging technologies, and I could see these guys were killing, some of them making £1,000 a day, and just working with bleeding edge technology. So I was always talking to smart people in very senior positions in defense and government organizations, and started to explore emerging tech, and obviously came across blockchain, something I'd been kind of following at a distance for a while, mostly keeping an eye on what IBM were doing. IBM were investing a lot of money in blockchain since I think 2015, so I was aware of it, but or anything apart from using some Bitcoin to basically buy and sell items on games back when I was maybe 15 years old, so nearly 10 years ago, maybe a little bit. I was doing that, and then I didn't like my job, but I liked that I got to network and speak with smart people who were really at the forefront of technology and security, and that I think security played a big part in it. So I actually wanted to start studying to become a pen tester, cybersecurity consultant myself, because that really interested me. But I'm not very technical, not to the extent that I would need to be anyway. So yeah, I just I kind of started buying crypto, and now I'm here. But there's a big journey between that. But that's what I was doing before.
Yeah, your story kind of sounds very similar to mine, where you were hearing about it. I personally saw a couple Goldman articles talking about blockchain technology. Don't know the news site that it was on, but I was like, yo, if these huge financial firms or these institutions are getting interested in blockchain technology, I should probably be doing the same. So that was kind of my intro as well. One thing that you touched on that I really liked was that a lot of people who are listening to this are probably in the situation where if they're working, they may not be as interested in their day job as they are in crypto. And it kind of sounded like you were in that same boat, but what you did was you used that time to network with all of these people around you who are, leaders of industry, extremely smart people. And I think that's something that everyone who's...
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think everyone...
there's also this there was always this element of like, I didn't know what I wanted to do for a career. I was always chopping and changing like my subjects at school and college, and I did a bunch of stuff. I've always had hugely diverse interests, and I've pursued very different subjects, and I always wanted to be kind of a polymath, and study as many things as I could. But when you don't niche in something, it's really difficult. And it wasn't until I actually found blockchain that all of my energy, all of my time was just funneled into it, which I really enjoyed. And I noticed straight away that I could make a career here, just because previously to that, photography, I was a professional wedding photographer. I love photography, but it never absorbed 100% of my time, and I never enjoyed it as much as something like this. So I think it's important if people really have a spark there to try and, and also, I know this is kind of cheeky, but I used my day job, because I was on the computer all day. I used my day job to actually research and speak to people and write. So I was actually like at my old day job. I was, I knew, hey, I need to invest time into this, and I was actually doing it while I was at work because I knew I wasn't going to stay there. It's really important that people, not saying mess their job up and get fired for, not paying attention, but I think it's important that, if people do feel they want to get started, then they should definitely run with it.
I think a lot of people are in that same boat where I've talked to a few people who say that they've got this kind of internal struggle of they don't know what they want to do. They've explored many different career options, and like yourself, I think crypto has drawn in a lot of people, and a lot of people have really consumed themselves with crypto. And it's super awesome because these people who, at one point in their life didn't really have as much direction now are focusing all of their time and energy into one specific thing. And as we can see, have created these, booming businesses. So that's kind of a little segue into, your business. Can you just give us a brief overview before we jump into the details about this kind of consulting company that you've got?
Yeah, sure. So my company is called ServAmps, which is an abbreviation of service amplifier. And our focus is around basically helping blockchain companies, usually ones that are very early stage and have a good product in mind, or ones that have already launched a product and they need users. And almost all of our work is focused around building users. There's user acquisition and then retention as well, because it's really important if you bring users in that they stay happy. So we are actually working with dApps because I think there's a really big gap in the market. Everyone's building infrastructure, and we've got hundreds of different blockchains. None of them are interoperable, and everyone with a good idea for a dApp is kind of just waiting until, which blockchain is going to win, which is going to be the fastest. But I think it's really important to encourage people to build dApps, even if, in 5 years you have to migrate them, or in a year you have to migrate them. I think it's important to encourage people to build dApps on any chain they can, and bring users. And also, so we help clients to remove the barriers to entry so that the people who are using their product don't actually know that they're using blockchain. I think that's really important. Something everyone talks about is just difficulty of accessing these dApps and things, and that that you're using something highly technical. You have to use private keys and stuff like that. So we're helping them to design solutions which are user friendly. That's kind of our focus. We also make investments in at seed round, so it's an accelerator model as well. So yeah, that's ServAmps, mostly focused around investing in companies which have a solid product and they really need to build a user base.
So one thing that you touched on there that I think is extremely important, and extremely smart on you guys, is that you're not only focused on acquiring users but then retaining them as well.
Absolutely.
You see a lot of these companies who pour tons of money into their marketing and it's aimed solely at acquiring users, but I think that they drop off very quickly. There's this kind of initial, hey, here's free product of ours, and then everyone forgets about it. So I really like that you guys are also focused on retention.
Also, I think there was a huge push on what was called community management last year in crypto, and people were basically paying for airdrop campaigns. They were paying to basically rally tens of thousands of people into a Telegram channel. Then they were managing a community. But I think now in 2019, we're really going to see a transition from community management to like traditional customer service. Like if these dApps, they're going to need customer service teams. They're going to need specialists, maybe tier 1, tier 2 technical support for some of them, because otherwise you just have people complaining in Telegram to team managers who have no idea about the ins and outs of the product and what's going wrong. So shift from community management to customer service, and that's where we get the retention part of ServAmps. How you retain users is you keep them happy and you service them. So we're helping teams to build out customer service departments for long-term vision, 5-10 year plans.
I mean, too many times I've been in, a Telegram group and they're just a mess, to be honest with you. Just thousands and thousands of messages and nothing really getting answered, and there's no kind of forward progress. So I like this, 5 to 10 year plan you've got where you're building, you're starting from square one, retain. Acquire, and then you've now moved on to retention and keeping the customers happy. And I don't think a lot of people are doing that just yet.
And we want to help them. We really want to help these people who have fantastic ideas. We want to help them tell a story so that they can actually show people, hey, this is how this product can help you.
So now moving on, we've kind of got this overview of what your company does. Can you jump into the details a bit more and talk about, why you created it, how you created it, kind of start to where you're at now, growing, acquiring customers, building your team, that kind of thing?
Absolutely. So I was heavily involved as a researcher in this space. So I was working firstly for like journals, independent journals, and I was part of a weekly report, like a coin report called Rolling Stone. We had quite a few users. There was a lot of people, reading it, and great feedback, especially when the bull run started, really picking up momentum. I was doing that, largely researching, and then I started working with hedge funds. And what I realized is I was helping funds to basically identify what a good investment was in a project and why. And then I realized, I was helping funds make money, and more often than not, some of these investments they made that they would just dump on the retail market. And so what I realized is, okay, I can sell this knowledge to projects instead of funds. So I would approach projects and this is how you become a good investment to a fund. This is what they're looking for. And I know that because I worked with a few. So I kind of knew what the thesis was and how to pitch it. So I did this independently. Worked in New York on a project, which I won't go into too much now, but worked there for a couple of months, 2-3 months. Then did some more consulting toward the end of that. And that was primarily focused around how can you attract investors? And that was much more enjoyable to me, helping projects secure funds rather than helping funds secure, investments. And then I decided, hey, I need to make a business model around this because it's much easier to gain traction, credibility, and momentum when you have a team and when you have a brand rather than just, being a solo entrepreneur by myself out in New York, because I'm obviously based here in London. But being in New York alone, I was having some good traction, but I realized that once the trend started to change, that people were more hesitant to pay for services like mine. So I formed ServAmps, and how I did that was I actually hired one of the guys from the fund I worked with. He was Small Capital in Palo Alto. And he actually hired me to help him with research back in January last year. And I thought I'd return the favor, and I actually, I offered him, hey, do you want to be my business partner, alongside a good friend of mine who is very focused on content, community management, content creation. So I brought these two guys together because we all have a different edge, and that's kind of how we got started. We already had clients because I obviously had my own pipeline, and these guys had, their own pipelines too. And we, put a brand together, and we've been going really quick since then. Despite the market, we've picked up some really good clients. It's still, fairly new. We incorporated about 7 months ago, but it's gone very quickly. So, yeah.
That sounds like you guys are really picking up steam. So I just wanted to touch on a couple things because you dropped a ton of knowledge there. You kind of started with this like article writing. Was that it?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you started with this article writing. So you were doing a lot of research. You were really diving deep into the details of a lot of this. And so to start, I think the best thing that anyone listening can do is they can really just start doing research, really get heavily invested in learning about this space. And then, just through what you were doing with work and kind of the directions you went, you kind of picked up a lot of knowledge along the way that was super helpful. When you worked at that hedge fund,
Yep.
you kind of learned how to identify investments, which is huge. And then, moving on from that, you kind of pivoted from helping these hedge funds to helping these startups and these early
Much
stage.
more enjoyable.
Yeah.
Much more enjoyable. There's so many funds, and it's funny. I mean, not many people know this, but some of the biggest crypto funds in the world right now are laying off all of their staff. They're completely illiquid. They have no money to invest anymore because they went very heavily into projects with with a year lock, sometimes 2 year lock. Now, some of the assets they bought are down 95%, and they're locked for another year. It's really crazy. So I'm glad I moved to helping people with good products and good ideas, because some of these huge funds who didn't have any time of day for anyone last year, they're now they're not closing down or anything, but they're firing really aggressively. So yeah, it's good to be this side of the fence and helping people with good ideas actually get funded, because yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So you made that move, and I think it was a smart move, but also you kind of followed what you were more passionate about, and I think that's huge. A lot of people get kind of pigeonholed into doing something that they aren't extremely passionate about. So that's another thing that I just wanted to touch on. And then you were kind of, as you were continuing on this journey, you learned about how to secure funds, and so now you've kind of wrapped that all up into this business, Servamps, that you've got. And lastly, as you were growing, you realized that you needed to build a team. This wasn't a one-man army. You couldn't do it all by yourself. And I think for a lot of people listening, that's something that really needs to be touched on. I think at the start of everyone's journey building up their business, they try to start by themselves and take on all this work by themselves, but you really need to outsource and hire these people who have knowledge that you don't necessarily have.
Sure.
You
How,
hired.
Go ahead, sorry.
Oh no, I was just gonna say you hired one of your friends, or I guess business associates at the hedge fund, and then you also picked up one of your friends who was huge in community management, and this kind of customer service side of things. So
Sure.
you picked up people with strengths that can be applied to your business.
Yeah, well, I'm just backtracking a little bit as well, just in case anyone was interested. When I was writing these coin reports, I was still in my full-time job. So, I was doing maybe 5 hours a day of reading about projects and why they were good. And if I didn't understand the technology, I would go and learn about it. And that was, when I still had my full-time job. But what I tried to do when I started, I went to Miami, BTC Miami last year. What I tried to do was try and do everything. I was trying to be community manager, fundraiser. I had a syndicate. I still have a syndicate. I was just trying to do everything. And I realized how important it was to notice what you're good at and what you're not good at, and basically fill the gaps appropriately. And I'm good at selling, and I'm good at communicating technical messages in a simple way. And I think that's really important when you're raising money. But I realized that some of the things I couldn't do, I couldn't stay focused on organizing. I'm terrible at organizing things. I'm my calendar is great, it's in place, but um, organizing and administration and things like this, I just needed help with, because I had so many things going on and so many pipelines, different types of work and different acts that needed to be held a different way. I had to admit, hey, I need people to help with administration. I need people to help with clients see different people in different ways. So I'm quite young, 25. I travel a lot, and I'm kind of a salesy person, and I think people are naturally going to see that, especially other CEOs of potential clients. So also, my partner Sean, he is a little bit older than me. He's extremely smart. He has a background in physics. He's an engineer. Used to work with Bill Gates. Just generally all round very, very smart man. And having someone like that who can support you um, in certain types of meetings really helps. And again, that's about finding people who complement your personality and your working style, and then who can basically fill in where you might fall short. I think it's really important.
I really like this kind of play to your strengths, hire to your
Exactly.
weaknesses kind of mentality. No one can do it all, and I think that's
Mhm.
something that people listening really need to hear, because sometimes they do try to do it all. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
so yeah, I think you're doing it extremely right. Um, so you've kind of jumped into the details of how this company was started, and you know where you guys are kind of headed. Um,
Mhm.
so can you speak on how sorry, can you speak on how you acquired clients, that kind of process? Because I feel like a lot of people have trouble reaching out and kind of growing their client
Yeah,
base.
yeah, absolutely. And that is still, difficult, especially in a bear market. Um, People are way more sensible now about spending money. In the height of the bull run, people were spending funds on advisory services. They were spending $15,000 a month for advisors. The advisors weren't doing anything. I'd love to name drop, but I would probably get in trouble. There's so many high tier advisors who were adding zero value to projects, and they were charging $10,000 just to be put on your website. But it did get much harder, and I think how I managed to build a client base really was through word of mouth, through the the I kind of have this ethos that if even if you can't work with everyone that you meet, they're still in this space with you, and you could team up with them, right? You don't have to work with everyone you team up with, but you can have a mutually beneficial relationship. You can refer people, constantly always networking, always introducing smart people to other smart people, because they remember and they're thankful for it. And if you can help them build an extra business, that extra business they build might be a client in the future. So I'm always looking out for other people, even if it's not always mutual. Sometimes people won't return the favor, but it's important that you do it anyway, because sometimes when they do return the favor, it will be huge. And that's how we picked up some of our clients, and some really long-standing relationships that have allowed us to be service providers for other accelerators, for other consulting companies. We do joint proposals with some of our partners. I'll talk a little bit more about Master Ventures in a moment, which is a fund that we're working with. But there's also a Hong Kong-based fund that we do lots of joint proposals with, and it's just about looking out for each other. I think if you're new to this space and you're trying to build clients, working, it's really hard at the moment because the standard of conference is just low, ending anymore. And yeah, I've just found in recent months the conferences aren't as good as they were last year, but it's still important that you just try and meet the right people, and you ask for introductions from people are heavily connected. Ask for introductions, just build a personal brand, and then use that to gain additional clients.
Love everything you touched on there. So I just kind of want to touch on some of the big points there. I think the first thing that you mentioned was that word of mouth and referrals are a huge thing. So you got to get out there. You got to start talking to people. You could have the best product around, but if you're not talking to anyone in the industry, you're not going to get anywhere.
Yep.
And another big thing with getting these referrals is that you need to make sure that your product or your business is A1. You're not going to get referrals simply
Yep.
by networking. It's kind of a dual thing where you, one, need to network to get those referrals, but two, you need to have a product behind your business that really speaks for itself, so that in conjunction, people are willing to refer you to others. And then one other big thing that you touched on, you were out there helping people, and you didn't necessarily have this notion that they were going to return the favor at any point. Sometimes you really just need to get out there, do things for other people, and it will be returned at some point, but it shouldn't be expected. And you build these mutually beneficial relationships with people. You scratch my back, I scratch your back, kind of thing. So I
Yeah,
think
absolutely.
that is
And
key.
this community is very open to referrals, and it's just a very tight knit community. I mean, even though crypto Twitter is occasionally a bit of an echo chamber and there's lots of drama there, if you meet these people in real life, even if you don't like them on the internet, like most of these people are really nice guys, and girls, of course, loads of girls now as well, which is great. But people are nice and they want to help. And if you always want to work with everyone, or you're always looking at everything as an opportunity, you will find clients. I think the other thing actually you mentioned about how you find clients, I think it's important that you have a very clear distinction from other companies and competitors, because there are hundreds of consulting companies in crypto, right? People saw it as a quick way to make money, and believe me, it's not. It's difficult, because there's so much competition. And that's why our clear distinction, our thesis, is focused around user acquisition and retention, because not many people are doing that, and that's also helped us to get clients, but having a real niche and focusing on that.
Here we go again, playing to your strengths and kind of separating yourself from the herd. So thank you. I really appreciate you diving into the details of that, and I know people listening are going to really appreciate that. So moving on from kind of away from how to build this business, let's talk about yours again and kind of what you're doing. And can you tell us a little bit, or can you talk to us about what you're most excited for in 2019 with regards to yourself, and then also with regards to the market?
Yeah, absolutely. So because there's something I want to talk about in a moment, which is really exciting, and I'll probably ramble on for a while, so forgive me in advance. But the thing I want to talk about first is, I think this year we will see lots of shifts, people more sensible thinking, high quality vendors. Just generally, the space will solidify, and it will kind of shield over. It's going to go slow. I think we're going to trade sideways most of the year. I don't think we're going to see a huge bull run again, just yet. But that's great, because it allows people to build. And I probably sound like I'm repeating CZ and stuff there. You build in a bear market, but it's true. There's lots of people building really cool stuff, and we've seen a huge shift already. You've got ICOs with 5 mil cap instead of 100, and you've got they're punishing private sale investors for selling early and stuff like that. You're seeing smarter ways of fundraising. You're going to see more DAO style structure ICOs. I think you'll see decentralized ICOs where the investors can control the flow of funds to the project, I'm really excited to see that model. I'm sure we're going to see it soon. So I'm excited to see that. It's just evolution. We're moving out of this negative and flippant way of kind of looking at things, and some more solid vendors and service providers will kind of emerge. There's also less scammers coming in. They're still there, but there's much less coming in, because there's much less money to scam. And I think it's important that we, can build without all this stupid money coming in. So I'm really excited about that. And just generally being able to work without focusing too much on investing. And it's more of an accumulation, buying slowly and seeing what you're buying and why, rather than just buying it because it's going to go up, which is, the case last year. Well, actually 2017. So yeah, I think really excited about that. The other thing I wanted to, which I'm really excited, is I'm working with a company. I can't even call it a company. It's called Master Ventures. It's based in Thailand, in Koh Phangan, which is a wonderful island, really beautiful paradise island. And Master Ventures, led by some very smart people, early Bitcoin entrepreneur Kyle Chassis, a good friend of mine, bought a beautiful resort in a mountain. It's called Utopia, and it's absolutely beautiful. And they're building a co-working space for blockchain entrepreneurs, which is fantastic. Really beautiful place. It's lots of smart people going in and out of the resort all the time, and they're open to people coming and joining as long as they bring value. So yeah, I mean, love to have you come down, man. If you ever wanted to join, you'd be welcome to come and stay with us, which is somewhere I'll be spending a lot of time.
Hopping on the first plane there, man.
Yeah, oh, for real. I mean, there's plenty of space, and there's some really smart people there. The Ignis team, I don't know if they still are. I think Peter Diamandis was there as well, founder of Singularity University. There's just really, really smart people coming in and out. Not just crypto either, just generally, people who are very focused on mindfulness and self-improvement, the environment. And yeah, it's a really cool crowd. And the thing that's really exciting about this is they're building a DAO. They'll have a traditional company at first, but everything will be done by smart contract. So profit share from investments will, be distributed by smart contract. It's a very community-led project. Lots of building to do still, but I think these are the kind of corporate models which we're going to see come out a little bit more in the next few years. More DAOs, more kind of cooperative movements and stuff like that, and it will be a big learning curve for them. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to that.
Yeah, wow. Sounds like a beautiful space, and it sounds like something a lot of our listeners would be interested in. So
Hmm.
I don't know if you mind or who they should maybe reach out to, but I'm sure a lot of these people listening are either business owners, or are in the process of creating a business, or or at least thinking about it. And this sounds like an opportunity for some of them to maybe hop in and get surrounded by people who are kind of leaders of industry. So is there anyone that they could reach out to that would that they could
Yeah,
potentially.
I'm more than happy to take messages myself. I think that would be better, and then I'm obviously happy to pass them on. I mean, at the present moment, I'm in London. I'm flying to Thailand on Tuesday. I'm going to spend a couple of weeks there. This is, an early stage project, but we are looking for smart people to come and help us build, whether they be developers, content creators, um, even people who just want to build strategies out. But obviously, there's huge demand for this because there's so many people who would love this opportunity. So it is a case of what people can bring and how they can demonstrate. And it's also a case of if some of the people who have gone to Thailand have literally, sold their apartment, sold their car, and they've just moved there and they're living there permanently now, or for the foreseeable future. So there's people making really hard sacrifices to be there and be taken care of by, the original founders. So it really is about, who can make the most time for it and who can contribute the most. But I'm more than happy to talk to people about this and see if we can, support people from coming out and visiting, and working with us. But as I said, it's early stage, so it's good that this opportunity is going to be present for the next probably 6 to 12 months. Um, so it's just about, the timing, the skills they can offer, and how much they can dedicate to it as well.
Of course. Yeah, I didn't want to make this sound like an open invitation to anyone to just come
Oh, no, not at
live
all.
in.
But kind of is. For the,
At the same
if,
time.
if
Yeah, yeah,
people want to
yeah.
come, they can. But yeah, it is. It's a big project. It's a blank canvas, and it's not been done before, not like this. It's supported by a hedge fund, which is making aggressive seed stage investments in breakthrough technologies and creating crazy token economies, which will be self-sufficient. And it will also have its own token economy. And yeah, I mean, some of the investments that Master Ventures have already made are really impressive. They have, they invested in a lot of the exchanges, the early exchanges. And they have equity in some of the big exchanges, so they saw the big trends before they came through. um but yeah, it's really exciting. Looking forward to that 2019.
Awesome. Yeah. So for anyone who is interested, I'll throw Charles's, Twitter handle, maybe an email in the description. So check that out. Shoot him an email. Shoot him a DM on Twitter, and maybe you guys can work something out there.
Cool.
So moving on to kind of my last question that I like to ask. If you were starting over, your company disappeared, you didn't know about this kind of community in Thailand, you had zero essentially, and you were trying to rebuild your business. What's the first thing that you would do to get started on that?
So if I didn't know anyone, if I was like kind of brand new, is that what you mean?
Yes, brand new, nothing. Say, I wanted to jump into this space, and kind of recreate a Servamps. What would I do first?
Honestly, it's all about learning. It's about being dedicated to always learning and being able to pivot as well, because the trends change very quickly, and therefore the pool of clients shrinks and it goes elsewhere. So you need to be able to pivot. So it's about learning. I honestly think you need to read. You need to find a niche. When you found a niche, what you really enjoy, what you really like. Mine was research. It evolved, but initially it was research. Initially it was learning. And I just think it's really important that you learn, you ask questions, and you talk to everyone. Say hi to people who you know. Ask them what they're interested in. Ask them what are they watching right now, why they're watching it. It's just really important. Networking, and you can really get up the stairs quickly, through finding the right people, and you'll build some really long-term friends. Some of my best friends in the world are people I met in the past 2 years in the crypto space, and I mean that. I've lived with people who I met in crypto. I formed businesses with them. Always willing to work with other people, and willing to learn. I think they're the most two important things to setting up a business in the space.
I know you touched on them already, but it's great that you reiterate that these are two of the most important things. One being research. I think everyone's kind of starting to do their research, starting to understand the space a lot more. So I think they're on track. And then really, I cannot stress the importance enough of, building your network and, really making genuine connections, because
Yeah,
you
absolutely.
you can add someone on Twitter, add someone on LinkedIn, say hi, and oh yeah, I've got this business, you've got that business, we should collaborate. There's
Mm.
that, and then there's truly taking an interest in someone and what they're doing, and when you
Yeah,
make that genuine connection, that's when lasting relationships are built.
definitely. I think meeting people in person, attending crypto meetups. I'm looking forward to. There's a new product coming out called FOMO Hunt, which will just basically be a one-stop shop for all events, meetups, etc. I'm looking forward to that. That wasn't a paid shill, by the way. But yeah, things like meetups are just you meet real people who are really passionate. I met two guys 2 days ago, I think. Yeah, on Friday. What day is it today? It's Sunday.
it's Sunday.
So I met two guys on Friday. I met the head of biz dev for Coinbase Exchange. And I met this guy called Crypto Raptor, and he's been in the space for ages, and he knows all of the OGs, and it's just you could tell how passionate he was, and we just hit it off really quick. And I'm sure we're going to work together in some way, even if it's not now, it might be in a few years. But if I hadn't have met up with them guys in person, I wouldn't have really understood their passion and what really gets them going. And then I wouldn't be able to help them and they wouldn't be able to help me. So yeah, I think meeting people in person is really important. And also, I know people say this in every industry, but you need to be happy to work for free for a while. Yourself, just write some content, start a medium, talk about trends, just kind of get yourself out there, because you can't just go into depending on what you want to do in the space, it's quite difficult to just jump into a paid job with no experience here. So it's really good to just kind of be proactive and work on some personal branding and your own stuff, your own writing.
Yeah, definitely a tough pill to swallow, but for anyone who's kind of trying to jump into this industry, a lot of these people who now are leaders of industry and who have built these big businesses have, they started and they were working for free. They were putting out content that was free. They were doing things for others to kind of get a foot in the door. It's kind of the dark side of building a business and being an entrepreneur that people don't like to talk about, but I think it needs to be brought up more.
Sure, absolutely. I mean, also on the topic I mentioned earlier of some of these big crypto funds firing everyone, I mean, where do you think these guys are going to go, right? They need jobs. They need jobs themselves. So I know for a fact there's a bunch of people looking for jobs. So if you're not willing to be proactive and really set yourself aside from everyone else and niche in something, it's going to be really tough, because there's so much competition in this market to secure clients and really build a reputation.
Very much so. And then the last huge thing that I want to talk on and bring up is, you mentioned being able to pivot, and I think some people get very stuck in their ways. They start on a project and they really need to see it through, but we're in a very, very new industry, 10 years old.
Yeah.
Things are changing constantly, every day it's something new. So you really do need to be able to assess whether your business is changing with the environment and pivot to make sure that you really are.
Absolutely. Pivoting is not only one of, I think one of the most important features of an entrepreneur in any space, but also it's just the concept of it is frightening, right? And I listened to Birch on Nye's podcast Evolvement, and he talked about how he put like $30,000 in a project he was doing, and he tried really hard to get going, and it got to a point where he realized, like, this isn't going to work, we're too early. And he didn't quit. He just said, look guys, this isn't the right time, and he started something else. And that wasn't quitting. You need to understand when you're quitting or when you're pivoting. And in this space, we're seeing much less ICOs now, and we're going to see a lot more STOs, less ICOs. This is a way more specialist thing. It's way more focus around legal and compliance, and ensuring certain boundaries are met. And what we've had to do is start to get broker dealer licenses and start to understand the securities space a bit more, look at securities law, which I haven't had to do before. I'm not even a US citizen, obviously, so interesting to see how things are kind of moved and they've shifted, and we have to be prepared to shift with them, otherwise we will lose. And that's why we're focusing a little bit more, or not focusing on it, but just being aware that there is an emerging trend with STO market, and being prepared to kind of take our portion of the market share when we can.
All right, so I think that pretty much wraps everything up. We kind of got, what you're working on, how you built it, what you're excited for, and you gave us a tip on how to get started. You gave, the listeners a tip on how to get started. So I really appreciate you sitting down and talking with me. I know the listeners are going to be beyond stoked to hear about this. So thank you.
No, thanks, man. Really appreciate you having me on here. And yeah, if anyone wants to ask me any questions or anything, or wants to talk about some of the things I mentioned, I'm always responsive. And I'd love to talk with anyone who has any questions.
Yeah, definitely. Twitter handle is going to be in the description, guys. Shoot him a DM. Before I had him on the podcast, we chatted for a little, and it was extremely easy to get a hold of him. Had a little conversation. It was awesome. So reach out. And again, thank you. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, man. Awesome.
All right, guys, that wraps up another episode. And I just want to take a quick second to ask you a huge favor. If you found anything in the episode helpful, or it's been inspiring to you in any way, I just ask that you share it with your friends, family, anyone you know on social media, and hopefully we can help them out as well. Have a good one.